Let's stay in London now and switch across town and catch up with former Foreign Minister Alexander Downer, find out what he thinks about all this. Good to talk to you again, Alexander. You didn't score a ticket to the coronation, did you? Did King Charles sling you an invite?
I'm afraid not, no. I don't have any locus standi, as they say these days, so I didn't. But I thought Danica captured the mood of the country pretty well. I mean, there is a high degree of enthusiasm and interest in the coronation. I think when it comes to the pledge, by the way, that's not the sort of thing that the British people would think was a very British thing to do. So I think people are a bit more half-hearted and uncertain about whether there should be some sort of pledge of loyalty. It seemed a strange idea to me.
Yeah, you'll be surprised to know that I won't be taking that pledge, but others can do as they
No,
feel
I'm not
free.
surprised. I'm not surprised.
Just on this, Alexander, I always love talking to you about Prince Charles because you've known him such a long time. You first met him, I think, when you were both teenagers, and of course you've had dealings with him on and off since then. Give us your sense of, you know, how he'll feel. I mean, he's waited such a long time for this. There's a heavy burden of responsibility, but he must be absolutely cock-a-hoop to finally get that crown on his head and get underway.
Yes, I mean, he's obviously very much underway as the king already. The coronation is just the formality, but he's been the king since the Queen died. And he's come to it very naturally, actually. I think he's moved into the position after all, with a huge amount of training for it.
Yeah.
He's been the longest serving heir to the throne. He's been to the heir to the throne since he was, 4 years old. So, and he's in his 70s now. Yeah, I think he's settled down very well. And I think people are, I think the right word here would be comfortable with him. He hasn't made mistakes. He hasn't put a foot out of place. He's got the balance of the job right, and he's showing that same commitment to duty that was such a characteristic of his mother.
All right, it's going to be fascinating stuff. I want to switch on to another major international affairs issue, a very deadly serious one, and get your thoughts on it. I think we show some pictures here of this drone attack that was foiled on the Kremlin, a very bizarre attack, just an explosion right above the dome there at the Kremlin. Now, Russia's been quick to say that this was an attempt by Ukrainian forces to assassinate Vladimir Putin, and then they're responding that this now gives them licence to seek the elimination of Vladimir Zelensky. What do we think has transpired here? Is this some sort of fake attack to justify that response from Russia, do we think?
I do think that, yes. I think it's highly improbable that the Ukrainians, if they wanted to assassinate President Putin, would in any case try to do it that way, use that sort of technique. As you can see, the drone explodes, but it doesn't do too much damage. If you want to assassinate President Putin, you'd have to do a bit more than that, firing missiles and the like. So it's clearly just a stunt, probably orchestrated by the Russians themselves, not the Ukrainians or some maverick group within Russia. After all, it's a long way from Ukraine to Moscow to fly a drone to do a little explosion like that. So I think it's highly improbable. No, the Russians are using this to build propaganda against Zelensky.
Yeah, and
no doubt about that.
And is it a great worry then? Does it signal that the Russians want to be able to take out Zelensky somehow, that they think if they can get him, they'll end the war?
They might think that, but my guess is it's much more to do with domestic politics.
Yep.
Continuing to build support for Putin, and in particular domestically continuing to build the case against Ukraine and Zelensky. Because after all, remember this, it's estimated that something like 100,000 Russian soldiers have been killed or wounded in this war. That is a huge number of people, even in a country with as big a population as Russia's, like 150 million. So the politics of this, I think, are all tied up. Domestic politics of this are tied up with this pathetic sort of so-called drone attack. I mean,
Yeah, great analysis, Alexander. Thanks for joining us yet again, and enjoy the coronation weekend.
Yeah, you too.
Alexander, indeed. Alex, he was being ironic, I think. Alexander down there, live from London.